If you've got a Caliber Boss Nut 2020 that you want to convert from a power spline bottom bracket to a dub bottom bracket, here's how to go about it. Badly. Tools you'll need to remove the power spline are a bottom bracket tool, this one's a Park Tool BBT22, a crank puller, this one's a Park Tool CWP7, something to turn them with, like a spanner, and also an 8mm hex wrench that I forgot to put in the shot. To install your new bottom bracket, you'll need the bottom bracket itself, a tool to insert it, this one's a Park Tool BBT79, probably a torque wrench as well, hex keys, and a new crankset. The first step is to lock the rear derailleur to take the tension off the chain, then remove the chain from the crankset. And then try and demonstrate why I'm changing the power spline, because it makes a clicking noise, which of course doesn't happen when you try and make it happen on camera. The first step to removing the power spline is to use an 8mm hex key to take this cover off. It should come off quite easily. Once that's done, you can use the crank puller to screw in and then screw in the crank puller until it comes under tension, and then use a spanner to start pulling the crank off. This will be quite stiff at first and then it will get progressively easier. If possible, try and make sure your hand's in shot so you can't see what's going on. Once you've done a few turns, it should become quite easy so that you can actually just turn the crank puller by hand. Once you've done one side, the other side is exactly the same process to take the other crank off. Then take your bottom bracket tool, and it's obvious how to get it out apart from the fact that on the drive side it's a left-hand thread, so you have to turn clockwise to remove it. The Park Tool doesn't insert that far, so I had to use the other hand to steady it to stop it falling out. At first that can be quite stiff, so it needed quite a lot of pressure to actually loosen it initially. On the drive side, when it comes out, the entire power spline comes out. On the non-drive side, it's a normal right-hand thread, so this also screws out, but it'll be much easier. If you are simply looking to replace your power spline with another one, then here's a part number and the labels of the sizes. To install the new bottom bracket, no spacers are needed because it's a 73mm bottom bracket, so this particular bottom bracket comes with spacers already on it, so you take those off and insert the sleeve from the drive side. It won't fit in from the non-drive side. Again, as it's a left-hand thread, you have to turn anti-clockwise to tighten it. It seemed to take quite a lot of turns. The Nukeproof bottom bracket already has anti-seize compound on the threads, so I didn't have to add anything. The non-drive side just screws in as you'd expect with a right hand thread. And then use your torque wrench to tighten up to the specified torque, which is at least 30 Newton meters, which is far more than you can do simply by hand. Then take your crank and give it a whack through. There's a 4.5mm spacer that's needed on the drive side. Then place the drive side crank on, making sure obviously that it's at 180 degrees to the other side, and use an 8mm hex key to tighten up the screw. This needs to be torqued up to, I think, 54 Newton meters, which is quite a lot, so this is where the torque wrench comes in handy if you've got an 8mm hex bit for your torque wrench. There's quite a lot of turns for the hex key as it tightens the cranks onto the spindle. You need to tighten the preload adjuster so it's just in contact with the bottom bracket, but in my case it seemed it only needed about a quarter of a turn. One thing that concerns me is that you see the cranks didn't spin that freely here, but then you tighten up the hex key to keep the preload adjuster in position. Then reinstall your pedals. The SRAM instructions say to use a torque of 54 Newton meters again for the pedal torque, which again is quite a lot, so torque wrench needed again. Once you've done that, put your chain back on your chainring and unlock the ridge derailleur, and Bob's your uncle. What could be simpler? With the SRAM crankset, you get these instructions that tell you that SRAM precision components require precision installation. Oh no.